Every single person watching this video is capable of cold-blooded murder. The only thing standing between you and that chilling reality is a single, fragile choice. You may believe you are a morally sound individual, a good person. But what if I told you that, buried deep within your psyche, there exists a separate, fully formed, and utterly ruthless second self? An entity whose only desire is the destruction of your life and everything you hold dear? This is the untold truth behind Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Robert Louis Stevenson's classic isn't just a horror story. It is a terrifyingly accurate case study on the duality of man, a story so potent it ripped the lid off Victorian society's deepest psychological fear. We're going far beyond the basic plot. We're going to use the book as a lens to peer into the darkest corners of your own mind. We will explore the chilling connection between Hyde and modern concepts like the shadow self, the neurology of evil, and why, when given the chance, good people choose to become monsters. The terrifying question is not whether Mr. Hyde is real, but how Dr. Jekyll, a genius physician, unknowingly engineered his own collapse using ancient occult principles that are still practiced today. The year is 1886. London is shrouded in permanent, thick fog, a perfect atmospheric metaphor for the moral ambiguity of the Victorian age. This was an era obsessed with repression. Appearance was everything. Good men, doctors, lawyers, gentlemen were suffocating under the weight of society's ironclad morality. Dr. Henry Jekyll, a respected physician and man of science, was one of them. Jekyll had a secret, not a vice, but a philosophy. He was fascinated by the eternal conflict he felt within himself. He believed humanity was fundamentally dual, a noble, refined spirit constantly fighting a base, primal instinct. The solution? Simple. Separate them. Create a chemical agent that could literally filter the good from the evil. But this is where the popular narrative gets it completely wrong. Jekyll wasn't just mixing chemicals. He was dabbling in something far older. The novel is vague about the ingredients, describing them only as some pungent salts. But Stevenson was a master of his time. He was dropping clues about alchemy and dark medicine, the occult practices used in secret societies across Europe, including London. These groups were convinced that through specific rituals or compounds, one could achieve a spiritual purification, or conversely, a complete surrender to the primal self. Jekyll was attempting a magical feat under the guise of scientific research. The first transformation must have been exhilarating. Jekyll drank the potion, and the evil, which had been cramped and bound, erupted in a flash of agony and euphoria. Edward Hyde was born. Hyde was smaller, younger, and utterly ugly. Not ugly because of scars, but because his body was the visible representation of pure, unadulterated evil. Hyde felt zero remorse and zero inhibition. He was a walking id. But why was Hyde so much smaller and less developed than Jekyll? The answer involves the Victorian obsession with physiognomy and a horrifying real-life theory about the criminal man that Stevenson deliberately incorporated. Initially, the arrangement was a luxury. Jekyll could indulge in unaccountable pleasures as Hyde, then simply return to his respectable self, leaving Hyde's guilt behind like a discarded coat. He thought he had found the ultimate escape from accountability. But evil grows. Hyde's actions escalated from petty mischief to cold-blooded brutality. The murder of Sir Danvers Carew is the shocking pattern interruption of the novel. Carew was a gentle, respected old gentleman, a symbol of the innocent, moral society Hyde despised. Hyde literally clubbed him to death with savage, motiveless fury. This act was not about robbery. It was about the joy of pure malice. And here is the psychological pivot. Jekyll began to enjoy it. Not the murder itself, but the freedom. The rush of absolute liberty from conscience. Hyde was the release valve for decades of repressed desire, resentment, and ambition that Jekyll had been forced to bury to maintain his social standing. Every time Hyde emerged, he took more of Jekyll's life, more of his soul. The terrifying realization came when Jekyll woke up as Hyde without taking the potion. The balance was lost. The evil was becoming the dominant self. Jekyll's initial sin was pride, the arrogance of believing he could control the fundamental duality of his nature. Hyde was simply his pride, given flesh. The most horrifying part of Jekyll's descent is that it perfectly mirrors modern neurological understanding of habit formation and moral erosion. How did Stevenson, an author, accidentally write a flawless medical case study decades before the field of neuroscience even existed? The answer lies in the frontal lobe, the exact part of your brain that makes you human. That's next. The psychological framework that best explains the Jekyll and Hyde phenomenon is Carl Jung's concept of the shadow self. Jung defined the shadow as everything we repress: the desires, the emotions, the flaws we deem unacceptable for our conscious, civilized identity. Jekyll created Hyde because his civilized self, Jekyll, was too rigid. The more he repressed, the more powerful the shadow became. Hyde is not a separate soul. He is the concentrated essence of everything Jekyll hated about himself, given autonomy. The goal, Jung argued, is not to eliminate the shadow that's impossible and dangerous, but to integrate it. Jekyll's fatal error was attempting to separate it. Let's talk about your brain. The part of your brain that controls executive function planning, moral reasoning, and impulse control is the prefrontal cortex, PFC. When the PFC is fully active, you are Dr. Jekyll, rational, thoughtful, and governed by long-term consequences. When Dr. Jekyll drank the potion, he was chemically disabling his PFC. Hyde is the raw limbic system, the ancient, emotional, and reactive part of the brain unleashed. The core difference between a psychopath and a morally sound person often comes down to the activity levels of the PFC. Hyde is a literary portrait of a person with a functionally disabled prefrontal cortex. Hyde isn't inherently supernatural. He is biologically uninhibited. Why was Hyde smaller? In Stevenson's time, there was a theory by Cesare Lombroso about the criminal man. Lombroso argued that criminals could be identified by primitive physical features, a kind of biological throwback. Stevenson, a true intellectual, used this pseudoscience to make a profound philosophical point. Hyde is literally the primitive version of man, the evolutionary predecessor that Jekyll's civilized self had painstakingly overcome. So, if Hyde is the uninhibited self, what exactly was in that final potion that Jekyll took, which promised permanent freedom from Hyde? The ingredients reveal a crucial, horrifying flaw in Jekyll's entire philosophy, a flaw that speaks directly to why your attempts at self-improvement often fail. We reveal the formula's secret in the next section. Jekyll was addicted to Hyde, not just for the chaos, but because Hyde offered a temporary escape from his own self-judgment. He was trapped in a cycle: repress, release, regret. Repress, release, regret. A. The formula's fatal flaw. Voiceover. Remember the potion? Jekyll reveals that the original mixture of salts was impure. When he tries to synthesize a new batch, he can't. He realizes his first batch contained an unknown, perhaps accidental impurity that was essential to the transformation. The flaw is this: Jekyll was trying to separate the good from the evil using pure ingredients. But the transformation only worked because of an impurity. This is the core philosophical message. The good self cannot exist without the evil self. The light needs the shadow to define itself. The attempt to chemically enforce purity was what summoned the impurity. B. Integrating the shadow. Jekyll and Hyde is a masterclass in what not to do. So, what is the healthy alternative? We turn to the wisdom of the Stoics. Stoicism, the philosophy of practical living, never sought to eliminate vice, but to acknowledge and master it. This is the integration Jekyll failed to achieve. Here are 3 steps, inspired by Stoic principles, to integrate your own Hyde, or shadow self. 1. The premeditatio malorum, contemplation of evil. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, constantly meditated on the worst-case scenario. Instead of repressing your capability for evil, acknowledge it. When you feel the urge to lash out, pause. Acknowledge, I am capable of doing this horrible thing right now, and then consciously choose the virtuous path. This takes power away from the impulsive Hyde. 2. Define the vice. Acknowledge the shadow. Hyde was defined by Jekyll's secret resentment. Identify your core shadow traits. Is it envy, laziness, or pride? Name it, define it, and look it in the eye. The moment you shine the light of consciousness on the shadow, it loses its power to control you from the dark. 3. The alchemical transmutation. Redirecting energy. Hyde was pure, uncontrolled energy. Instead of repressing that energy, Stoicism teaches you to transmute it. The aggression Hyde felt can be transmuted into intense focus or ambition. The lust can be redirected into creative passion. You don't get rid of the energy. You simply change its output. The ultimate lesson is that the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is not a warning about science, but a timeless warning about repression. You are, simultaneously, both the doctor and the monster. The goal is simply to be the master of the house, not the servant of the guest. The story ends with Jekyll choosing death over a permanent existence as Hyde. He failed. He sought separation and found only self-destruction. But if Dr. Jekyll had a choice, he wouldn't have chosen to be Hyde. He would have chosen to be a hero. He would have embraced the terrifying truth. Your greatness is measured not by the absence of darkness, but by the light you choose to shine when the darkness is acknowledged. If this video opened your eyes to the darkness within, hit the like button now to let me know. And if you're ready to take the next step in understanding your shadow, then you need to see this video right here on the screen. It's my deep dive into the dark side of the Renaissance, the real history of how powerful families used occult rituals and forbidden knowledge to control the masses. Click here to understand the forbidden tactics they used before YouTube removes this video.